This is part 2 of our lesson on horizontal and vertical lines. We just finished looking at horizontal lines, and now we're going to take a look at some vertical lines. So vertical lines are lines that go straight up and down. That's what it means to be vertical. And our first question here says record any 4 points from the following line. So like I did last time, I am just going to choose at random 4 points off that line. It really doesn't matter which 4. I think I'm going to pick this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So I'm going to start at the top. This would be the point 4 and 4. This point here is 4 and 1. This would be 4 and it hasn't moved, so 0. And this is 4 and -5. Okay, our next question says, what do you notice about the points in the table? I will give you a second to think about that. All right, hopefully you noticed the same thing I did, which is that all of the x values are the same. They are all 4. So I'm going to say all of the x values are 4. Okay. Next one says state the y-intercept of the line. So I have my vertical line. Does it cross the y-axis? That's what the y-intercept is. And the answer is, I don't think so. So in what I can see on the graph, it is not crossing the y-axis, but I don't think it ever will, because if I look at the top, it is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces away from the y-axis, and at the bottom it is also still 4 spaces away from the y-axis, which means that this line is parallel to my y-axis and they are never going to cross. So the y-intercept, there is none. So I'm just going to write none. Okay, what about slope? So slope is rise over run, or delta y over delta x, or the change in y over the change in x. So I'm going to start, I don't have a y-intercept to start at, so I think I might start at the x-intercept just because I need to start somewhere. I notice that the line is going up 1, so my y value part should be 1. But then is it moving over to the left or the right? No, it's not moving over at all. So it's going over 0. So it's moving up 1, but then over 0. It's not actually moving anywhere. So what is 1 divided by 0? So 1 divided by 0 on my calculator gives me this little e, which is an error. And there's a reason for that. Okay. If I have 1x and I want to make as many groups of 0 as I can, how many groups of 0 could I make? So I'm going to make one group of no x's. How many x's do I still have left? 1. So I'm going to make another group of no x's, and I still have an x left. So I make another group of no x's, but I still have an x left. So I make another group and another group and another group and another group, and I could spend the rest of my life making groups of nothing because I will always still have one little x still sitting there. So when you're dividing, you're trying to ask yourself, how many groups of 0 can I make out of 1? So if I have 1x or 1 jelly bean, how many groups of 0 can I make? And the answer is an infinite number. You could keep doing that for the rest of your life and you would never actually run out of x's or jelly beans or whatever it is you're starting with. So when you're dividing by 0 and you're making groups of 0, you get an error on your calculator. There are 2 different answers that you can write down. Number 1, you can write the word undefined. It means that it has no defined answer, that there is no answer to 1 divided by 0 because you can't make groups of 0. Or If you think about it, if you're going to keep making groups of 0 and you're doing it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, there is an infinite number of groups of zeros that you can make. So I am willing to accept an answer of undefined. I'm also willing to accept an answer of infinity. Okay, so the slope of a vertical line, because it goes straight up and it never moves to the left or right, the slope is always going to be undefined or infinity. Sometimes I like to write infinity because it's less writing than writing out the word undefined. All right, our last part. It's going to be a little tricky. It says state the equation of the line. So normally I would do y equals mx plus b. But we said it doesn't have a y-intercept. That doesn't mean the y-intercept is 0. That means it doesn't even have a y-intercept. And then we also don't really have a slope. Our slope is undefined, which means, unfortunately, in this case, I cannot use y equals mx plus b. So it works for the majority of lines, but it does not work for vertical lines. So we're going to have to get creative here, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to think about the previous question. So here, when we had the horizontal line, we said the equation of this line was y equals 3, and that all of the y values in our table, all of the y values on that line, they were all 3. So here, if I look at this one, all of the x values of that line are 4. So the equation of this line is actually x equals 4. It's weird. It's different. It doesn't follow y equals mx plus b, and it can't because it does not have a slope. It does not have a y-intercept, so you can't really do anything with it. So vertical lines are just x equals and then a number, and horizontal lines are just y equals a number. So you can join me in the next video where we'll take a little bit deeper look into horizontal and vertical lines.